What if the only thing standing between you and your future was a single word? No. What if you heard that word not once, not twice, but 3 times, from the very people who were supposed to open the door to your dream? Steven Spielberg did. Long before the Oscars, the billion-dollar box office hits, and the worldwide recognition, he was just a young man with a passion for storytelling, and a long list of rejections telling him he wasn't good enough, he wasn't talented enough, he wasn't professional enough. Does this sound familiar? You've probably felt it too, being ignored, underestimated, told to come back only when you're more ready, more polished, more like what they expect. But what you're about to see is proof that some of the greatest success stories, the most iconic careers, don't start with applause carto, but with silence. Silence, and a decision that no one sees. Spielberg's story isn't just about the movie industry. It's about what happens when someone chooses to believe in themselves, even when the world doesn't believe. He wasn't accepted into film school. He was rejected 3 times, but he didn't give up. Instead, he made a decision that you wouldn't find on any resume. He decided that rejection wouldn't define who he was, that failure could bring transformation, that maybe the world wasn't ready, but he was. And that decision, made without cameras, without lights, without validation, would set in motion one of the greatest journeys in cinema. This isn't just a Steven Spielberg success story. It's about something much deeper. It's about personal growth, about turning fear of failure into fuel, and about making invisible decisions that eventually turn into very visible results. Maybe your dream isn't to direct in Hollywood. Maybe your dream takes another form. But if you've ever felt like a door was closed before you even knocked, you'll recognize yourself here. Because Spielberg's story is about more than just making movies. It's about mindset. It's about persistence. It's about choosing to keep going when everything seems to be telling you to stop. The moment he heard "come back when you're a real professional" could have been the end of it all, but it wasn't. And the reason why might surprise you. Here, every story is a spark. Every video is a safe space to remember who you are, even when the world tries to make you forget. If this story has already stirred something inside you, imagine what comes next. So stay with me. What you're about to discover could change the way you see your own story. Because behind every iconic success, there's a moment no one sees, a turning point that begins with silence, self-confidence, and sometimes rejection. And as this story continues, maybe something inside you is already moving. Maybe you remembered a moment of yours, that silence that hurt more than any words, that attempt that no one saw, that dream that you almost erased to fit into the world. And that's why this space exists, because here, every detail matters. Every comment, every story you share is like a light in the dark for someone who is still trying to find their own way. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what has touched you the most so far. Share a rejection you've experienced, a time when you wanted to give up, or a silent decision that changed everything. Sometimes your experience may be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Your story has power, and when you comment, you help this space become more human, more truthful, more ours. And if this touched you in any way, if it made you see yourself in that rejection or that silence, don't forget to like this video. This isn't just a click. It's the most direct way to show that this type of content matters. It's what makes YouTube deliver this video to those who need to hear this message the most. And of course, if you want to continue on this journey with us, if you want to be here for the next stories, the next turning points, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, because each new video can be another key turning inside you. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content. It is what keeps this space alive, true, full of stories that are not in books, but that are in the soul of those who have fallen and decided to get up. And now, the most revealing part of this journey is about to begin. Before fame, before the spotlight, before any recognition, there was a boy with a camera in his hand and the weight of no on his shoulders. Steven Spielberg didn't start with applause. He started with closed doors. 3 times rejected by the same film school. 3 times told, directly or indirectly, that he wasn't good enough. that what he had wasn't good enough, that his vision was too raw, too dreamy, too amateurish. And when the answer comes with that kind of coldness, what builds inside is not just frustration, it's a feeling of displacement, a kind of pain that doesn't show up in the photos, but that shapes every step from then on. He felt invisible, as if there was a wall between him and the world, a wall with phrases written on it like, "You don't belong here, this isn't for you, there are better people in line." And as much as he had an obsession, telling stories, creating worlds, transforming ideas into images, the reality was harsh. He had no diploma, he had no endorsement, he had no space, and no one seemed willing to give him a chance. But it was precisely there that something silent began to arise. A doubt, yes, but not the kind that paralyzes. It was a doubt that pushed, what if I do it my way? This question, small on the outside, carries immense power on the inside, because it doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from the desperation of those who no longer have anything to lose, and at the same time, everything to prove. When the world closes its doors, there are those who accept their fate, and there are those who decide to create a back entrance. Spielberg, unintentionally, has taken a path that few have the courage to follow, the path of hidden truth, the one that does not depend on a diploma, permission, or applause. It is the inner truth, the conviction that is born when the noise of the world falls silent, and all that remains is the sound of one's own conscience saying, "Keep going," even alone, even invisible, even rejected. This is the point in the journey where many give up, because here, what screams the loudest is not the opinion of others, it's the voice inside your head that starts repeating everything that was said outside. You're not a professional. This won't lead to anything. Maybe they're right. But when that voice starts to gain strength, it takes double the courage to remember what made you start. Spielberg had that courage, not because he was stronger, but because he decided not to let the pain of rejection speak louder than his desire to create. And that decision wasn't made in front of cameras, nor on a stage, nor with inspiring music in the background. It was made in the dark, alone, like almost every major turning point in life. And it's curious how this moment, this rock bottom, is also the place where the clearest vision can be born, because it's there that you realize there's no one left to please. There's no image left to sustain, only the essence remains, and sometimes it's exactly when everything seems lost that the truest impulse arises, to do it anyway. Do it because not doing it hurts more, because denying who you are is no longer an option. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because it is at this silent, intimate, and invisible point that most destinies begin to change. Comment. Here, I'm on this journey too. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there is something that almost no one talks about when it comes to overcoming. Real change does not happen in the spotlight. It happens in the dark. When no one is watching, when no one is betting on you, when everyone has already left. The so-called invisible decision has no audience, no instant recognition, no likes or applause. It is silent, intense, and often desperate. It arises when you look around and realize that if you keep waiting for validation, you will spend your whole life sitting in the stands watching others live. That was where Spielberg arrived, without a degree, without formal support, without an impressive resume, but with a fierce desire that no longer fit inside him. And it was this desire, not logic, not security, not plan B, that guided his next step. He decided that if the door was closed, he would not wait for someone to open it. He would find a way in, and he did. He invaded Universal Studios. That's right. He literally entered where he couldn't be. He presented himself as if he already belonged there. And no one questioned him, because those who act with the energy of those who belong often go unnoticed among those who are just following orders. There, backstage, without a badge, without a title, without a penny in his pocket, he began to observe. He learned from the directors, from the technicians, from the mistakes and successes that college would not have been able to show. He borrowed a camera, wrote his own scripts, filmed short films on his own, and he began to build something that could no longer be ignored: results. While others were still waiting for their diploma to start their lives, he was already delivering work. He was already practicing, testing, making mistakes, improving, exposing himself to real risk, not to theory, but to experience. And here comes one of the most uncomfortable truths of this journey. The world does not pay for intention. It does not reward potential. It does not open doors for those who could be good. The world responds to delivery, to impact, to presence. And Spielberg understood this very early on. He understood that if he waited until he was ready to move, he would never get anywhere. That if he followed the traditional path, he might even get a role in the market. But not the story he was born to live. Because there is a difference between following a path and creating your own, between waiting to be chosen and positioning yourself as inevitable. And that difference begins with a choice. Just one. He chose to support his own vision, even without any guarantees. He chose to go where he was not called, to learn from those who did not even know they were teaching, to build without a manual, without a map, without permission. This attitude, at first glance, seems like rebellion. But deep down, it is a form of survival for those who know they were not born to repeat patterns. It is the instinct of those who understand that certain journeys will not be recognized at first, and yet they are real. They are valid. They are transformative. Spielberg's decision to act before being given permission is in fact the decision of many people we admire today. Almost everyone at some point had to break with common logic and follow their own path. They had to listen to the only voice they had left, their own. And perhaps that is what most connects this story to yours. Because on some level you too have felt like you didn't fit in. That your way of doing things wasn't the right way. That your vision was too big or too different or too bold to fit the molds you were taught. But what if, precisely, because of that it is necessary? What if this difference is what the world is missing? That's why the invisible decision matters so much, because it comes before recognition, before success, before any proof. It is made in the dark, but it transforms. The light that comes after. And no one sees the exact moment it happens. No one records it, no one applauds it. Only you know, only you feel it. And that's why it's so powerful. Spielberg didn't become a director when he won an Oscar. He became a director when he decided he already was, even without a degree. When he saw himself as such, even without validation. When he understood that authority is not given, it is assumed. And from that moment on, the world began to react to this new identity, because the world responds to the way you position yourself. And when you position yourself with truth, with courage, with clarity of purpose, even without a badge, doors start to move, paths reveal themselves. Not because it got easier, but because you became stronger, more aligned with your essence. And when that happens, what was impossible starts to seem just improbable. And the improbable with consistency starts to seem inevitable. Comment here. That makes sense to me. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because it's easy to look at the names that shine at the top and forget what came before. The light. It's easy to admire the impact without seeing the invisible effort that preceded it. When Spielberg was hired by Universal at 22, many people thought it was luck, a stroke of opportunity, a talent that had finally been discovered. But it wasn't that. It wasn't luck. It was construction. It was the sum of choices that no one saw. It was the result of a mindset that didn't wait for the green light to get started. It just went with it. At the age of 28, he released Shark, a film that almost didn't happen, full of technical problems, a budget blown, criticism even before its release. And yet, he insisted, he persisted. He directed the chaos with such conviction that the chaos became a masterpiece. And that film changed everything. It redefined what the world called blockbuster cinema. The entire industry was reorganized based on what he dared to do. And from that moment on, there was no turning back. They came and Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List. Entire universes that came out of the mind of someone who, one day, was rejected for not being professional. This is one of the most powerful revelations of this journey. Invisible. Decisions create results the world could never have imagined. And these results are not just success, they are collective transformation. Spielberg didn't just win, He changed the frame of reference. The boy who carried the feeling of being invisible became the name impossible to ignore. The world that discarded him had to rearrange itself to fit him, because he became bigger than any space they had denied him. There's something so powerful when someone builds something so solid that the system can no longer turn a blind eye. When the result speaks so loudly that no amount of past rejection can erase it. This isn't just about talent, it's about vision, about taking on a journey when it still seems absurd, about doing what needs to be done when no one applauds. Spielberg became the director. The world admires not because he was accepted, but because he no longer needed acceptance to exist. And perhaps this is the most important thing of all, the construction of an identity that is not based on external validation. When a person starts to live and act as who they already are, the world sooner or later ends up giving in. The answer does not come from outside, it comes from within. And that is the turning point. Not when they hire you, not when they applaud you, but when you start acting like someone who has something to deliver, even if no one asks for it. Spielberg was called because he decided beforehand that he was ready, and that changes everything. Write in the comments, "I'm on this journey too," and maybe today you are exactly at that point. Tired of trying, frustrated for not being seen, trying to silence a part of you that insists on continuing to dream. But let me tell you, this is exactly where the most important decisions lie. Because when everything says stop, and you still choose to keep going, you start to move away from the average and get closer to your legendary version. The no you received may have hurt, but it can also be what separates who you are today from who you can still become. Spielberg didn't need to be accepted by an institution to create stories that touched the entire world. He just needed to accept himself as a director before the world noticed. And you? What will you decide today, even without approval, without an audience, without a diploma? Because the great ones do that. They choose in the dark, and the world only watches later. If you've come this far, it's because something in this story has found a place within you. Maybe it was a memory, an old dream, a pain that still throbs, or a decision you've been putting off. Whatever it is, this space is for that very reason, for us to recognize ourselves, to strengthen ourselves, and to remember that we're not alone on this path. If this content has brought you clarity, courage, or simply a breath of fresh air, subscribe to the channel. The idea here is to continue bringing stories that truly touch you, that help you turn keys inside out, that provoke that change, that starts silently, but transforms everything. Each video is designed with this in mind, and if you felt that this message was for you, comment below, "My classroom is the world," just so I know you came all the way with us, and that this conversation got through to you in some way. Oh, and leave your like too, not because of the algorithm, but because of this connection we've built here. Because when something makes sense, we mark it, and this helps this content reach those who also need to hear it. There is a video here that complements everything we talked about. Click and continue with me there, because this journey is just beginning.